Sincere apologies, but during the first installation presentation, I forgot to mention that you need to have a look at the cauldron before you install filters. That is when the owner or manager has given permission at the end of the presentation. It is imperative that you check whether the cauldron is in good working condition and that there is no ice buildup behind the cooling unit. If there is, you need to ask the owner or manager to have the unit defrosted or to have it checked, because it could be a shortage of gas, as ice build-up prevents proper air ventilation, which will have a negative impact on your trial. The second series in the installation training sessions will deal with what you need to do when you install the filters for the first time. You now need to get out your installation sheet and complete the top half, which has to do with the owner's names, business names, telephone numbers, addresses, etc., so that you know exactly where this trial is being conducted. In the comments section, list the expectations of the owners, or managers, or staff that they have of the filters. They may be experiencing food spoilage or cold room odors that they are not happy with, and this will help you later with you compiling your technical report. When you reach the cold room for the first time, check on the external temperature gauge whether the cold room is running at a satisfactory temperature. It will also indicate if the temperature inside that cold room is acceptable. If it's too high, you have to be cautious and establish why that is happening. Although these gauges are not always accurate, they do at least give you an indication that there are reasonable temperatures inside the cauldron. Check the seals of the doors of the cauldron to make sure that they seal the door properly when the door is closed, and if there is any gap or whether they are perished, please make a note under the comments on your installation sheet, as this could negatively impact on the results of the trial, and at least you have something to demonstrate why that occurred. Now enter the cold room and see if the cooling unit is working, whether the fans are turning, whether the air ventilation is sufficient, and at the same time just ensure that at the back of the cooling unit that there are no obstructions, there's no debris, and if there is any, have same removed. Now switch on your hygrometer and try and place it behind the cooling unit on a shelf or on one of the pipes where you need to be recording the temperature and the humidity whilst you carry on with the rest of the installation work required. Take a note of what is in the cold room in terms of contents and produce, and make a note, a short crisp note on the various products, so that when you do your technical report you know what was in there. And it also helps you, because if you're busy with a number of trials, you may just forget when you are busy doing your documentation as to what was actually in that cold room, because in some instances you can always show photographs and have other experiences and testimonials which is particular to the type of produce that was in that cold room on trial. Next, you need to measure the length and the breadth of the cold room and record that on that little diagram that is on your installation sheet. And we always use the standard height of 2 meters for all cold rooms, except the large industrial and very large meat cold rooms, which we will deal with under another training session. You now need to determine the number of filters that need to be installed for the cold room on trial, and to do that you need to calculate the volume, measuring the length times breadth times height, and that will give you the volume. And using your table of filter installation that's in part of your training program, you will be able to establish how many filters are required. Now record the number of filters that you have installed on your installation sheet, giving a clear description of in which cold rooms they are and how many in each cold room. You now need to decide where you're going to install the filters. Always try to put one over the door. Place a filter or two on the side of the cooling unit, even behind the cooling unit, anywhere but in front of the cooling unit. If it's a large cold room, you can go to the furthest corner. You can even place it behind a fluorescent light on the ceiling, anywhere where the air is at its slowest. Where the ceilings are very high, you can either use a short step ladder or even a longer one, as this example, or you can even make use of an extension rod. We will give you details later of how this particular rod can be manufactured very cheaply. Please ensure that when you install the filters that you do not put them in a place where they will easily be knocked down, like above the highest shelf, because when the people move boxes or crates in that area, there's a very good chance they would knock it down. So be careful in that regard. When you've completed the installation, it makes good business sense to invite the owner or the manager to go through the installation sheet with you, where you will highlight the temperature and the relative humidity readings, the number of filters that you put into each cold room, and some of the observations that you have made, so that they can see that you've taken a professional interest in the work that you've done, and by informing them thereof, this is what they will be looking out for an improvement when you next come around for your validation.